50 years had passed since the Tajan Pioneer incident. Most of the galaxy had forgotten about it. The rescue was just another small event in the endless history of space. The Vrexians certainly never thought about it. To them it had been a minor act of charity, barely worth remembering. Humanity, however, had not forgotten. General Minho stood in a secret command center buried deep beneath the surface of Mars. Around him, holographic displays showed the progress of Project Recall. It was the largest covert military operation in human history. For 50 years, thousands of people had worked in secret. For 50 years, humanity had prepared. Minho looked at the reports. Hidden shipyards had built over 800 warships. Research stations in distant asteroid fields had developed new weapons technology. Training facilities on remote moons had created elite military units. All of it hidden, all of it waiting. He remembered Admiral Su-jin, his predecessor, who had started this project. She had died 5 years ago, but her vision lived on. Never be helpless again, she had said. Never rely on their kindness. Dr. Haiyuan entered the command center. She was the lead scientist for weapons development. Her team had achieved something remarkable. General, the shield disruptors are ready. We tested them yesterday. They work perfectly, Minho smiled. The shield disruptors were the key. Alien species relied on energy shields for defense. Human scientists had spent decades studying captured technology, understanding how those shields worked, finding their weaknesses. Now humanity could turn off those shields with the press of a button. Excellent work, Doctor. How long until all ships are equipped? 2 weeks, General. Every vessel in the fleet will have them. Commander Jiwan walked in next. She led the Special Forces Division. Her units trained for one specific purpose: boarding alien ships and disabling them from the inside. She carried herself like a weapon, precise and deadly. General, my teams are ready. We have run thousands of simulations. We know their ship layouts. We know their weak points. Give the order and we will take their vessels apart from within. Minho nodded. Everything was coming together. But they still needed time. Time to finish preparations. Time to position their hidden fleet. Time to ensure that when the moment came, humanity would strike with overwhelming force. Publicly, humanity seemed peaceful. Human colonies expanded slowly and carefully. Trade continued with other species. Earth's diplomats smiled and signed treaties. To the galaxy, humans appeared to be a typical developing civilization, focused on commerce and growth. No one suspected the truth. No one knew about the weapons hidden in asteroid fields. No one knew about the massive warships disguised as cargo vessels. No one knew that humanity was ready for war. Then everything changed. A message arrived at Earth. It was marked urgent. Minho read it and felt his blood turn cold. The Vrexian collective had attacked the Helion sector. 3 human colonies. No warning. No declaration of war. The Vrexians simply arrived and destroyed them. Millions of people dead. Entire settlements turned to ash. When human diplomats demanded an explanation, the Vrexians responded with contempt. The Helion sector was always ours. You were occupying our territory. We have corrected this error. But that was not the worst part. High Strategos Kelthrix himself delivered the final message. He was old now, but still in command. His face appeared on every screen across human space. Humans, your time of expansion is over. The galaxy is entering a new era. The Vrexian collective is consolidating our power. You have 2 choices: submit to our authority and become our subjects, or refuse and be removed from existence. You have 1 month to decide. The message ended. Silence filled the command center. Then someone spoke. They saved us once, Dr. Haiyuan said quietly. 50 years ago they saved us. Now they want to destroy us. Minho stood up. His face was hard as stone. Yes, they saved us. And we have been grateful. We have been peaceful. We have tried to coexist, but they see us as insects. They always have. Now they want to crush us. He looked around the room. Activate Project Recall. All units, all ships, all weapons. The time for hiding is over. Across human space, coded signals were sent. In hidden facilities, lights turned on after decades of darkness. Massive doors opened in asteroid fields, revealing shipyards the size of cities. Warships that had been disguised as cargo vessels shed their false exteriors and powered up their weapon systems. On New Sol, Ensign Daehyun received his orders. He was the grandson of Captain Daeho, the man who had been saved by the Vrexians so long ago. Daehyun had grown up hearing that story. He had been taught to respect the aliens who showed mercy, but he had also been trained for war. He knew the truth that his grandfather had seen but never spoken. The Vrexians had never respected humanity. They had only tolerated them. Daehyun reported to his ship, a heavy cruiser called the Vengeance. As he walked through the corridors, he saw other crew members. All of them were young. All of them had been born after the Tajan Pioneer incident. They had grown up in a humanity that was preparing for this moment. They were ready. Earth's government made its public response. The president appeared on all channels. His words were simple. 50 years ago, the Vrexian collective saved 50,000 human lives. We have never forgotten that act of kindness. We have been grateful. We have sought peace. But today they demand our submission or our destruction. We will give them neither. Humanity chooses to stand. Humanity chooses to fight. And humanity will show the galaxy that we are no longer the helpless species that once begged for rescue. The galaxy watched in confusion. Most species expected humans to surrender. After all, the Vrexian collective was one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. Their military had conquered dozens of worlds. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. What chance did humans have? High Strategos Kelthrix received Earth's response with amusement. He had expected fear and begging. Instead, he got defiance. It did not matter. He would crush this rebellion quickly and move on to more important matters. Kelthrix ordered his primary battle group to the Helion sector. 50 capital ships, the pride of the Vrexian fleet. They would destroy any human resistance and secure the territory. The operation would take a few days at most. Humans were primitives with primitive weapons. This would not even be a real battle. Back on Mars, General Minho watched the Vrexian fleet movements. His analysts tracked every ship. They knew exactly where Kelthrix was going. Perfect. Commander Jiwon, prepare your boarding teams. Dr. Hyawan, activate all shield disruptors. Signal the fleet. Operation Thunderfall begins now. In the darkness of space, human warships dropped their disguises. Navigation lights came on. Weapon systems powered up. The hidden fleet emerged like ghosts. Hundreds of vessels appearing where sensors had shown nothing before. The largest ship was the UHNS Retribution, a dreadnought-class vessel that carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. General Minho stood on its bridge watching the tactical display. The Vrexian battle group was 2 hours away. They still had no idea what was coming. Ensign Daehyun sat in the cockpit of his fighter, docked inside the Vengeance. His squadron was ready. They had trained for this their entire lives. Now they would see if all that preparation meant anything. He thought about his grandfather. Captain Daeho had died 5 years ago, peacefully in his sleep. He never knew this war was coming. Maybe that was a blessing. Or maybe he would have wanted to see it. To see humanity stand up and fight back. All fighters, this is Vengeance Command. Launch in 5 minutes. Stay in formation. Remember your training. And remember why we fight. The communication officer paused. They saved us once. Now they want to destroy us. Show them that gratitude does not mean weakness. Show them that humanity remembers everything. Daehyun gripped his controls. His heart pounded. Around him, the carrier bay doors opened, revealing the stars. The moment had arrived. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of building in secret. 50 years of waiting. The waiting was over. The war had begun. The Vrexian sensors detected the human fleet when it was still an hour away. At first, the Vrexian commanders thought it was an error. Their screens showed hundreds of warships approaching. That was impossible. Human intelligence suggested they had maybe 30 or 40 combat vessels, outdated and poorly armed. High Strategos Kelthrix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Fury. He stared at the tactical display. 800 contacts, 800 human ships, all heading directly toward his battle group. How is this possible? He demanded. Where did they get so many ships? His second-in-command looked nervous. Unknown, High Strategos. Our intelligence showed no indication of this fleet. They must have been hiding them. Kelthrix felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. But he pushed it away. It does not matter. Quantity cannot defeat quality. Our shields and weapons are far superior to anything humans possess. Prepare for battle. We will destroy them all. The Vrexian fleet moved into formation. 50 massive capital ships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. Their shields came online. glowing barriers of energy that could withstand almost any attack. They had used this technology to conquer countless worlds. It had never failed them. On the bridge of the Retribution, General Minho watched the Vrexians prepare. He could see their confidence in their movements. They thought their shields would protect them. They thought humans still fought with primitive weapons. They were wrong on both counts. "Dr. Hewan, are the disruptors ready?" Minho asked. "Yes, General, all ships are in position. We have targeting locks on every Vrexian vessel. Execute." Across the human fleet, shield disruptors fired. They were not weapons in the traditional sense. They did not explode or burn. Instead, they sent out carefully designed electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the quantum fields that powered alien shields. It was technology that had taken 50 years to develop. It had cost billions to perfect, and it worked beautifully. The Vrexian shields flickered. Then they vanished. Every single shield on every single ship simply turned off. On the dominant Fury, alarms screamed. Kelthrix stared in disbelief as his ship's protective barrier disappeared. "Shield status," he shouted. "Offline high strategos, all ships report shield failure. We cannot restart them. Something is blocking the systems." Kelthrix felt real fear for the first time in his long military career. Without shields, his ships were vulnerable. But surely human weapons could not penetrate Vrexian armor. Surely they still had the advantage. Then the human fleet opened fire. Railguns launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Particle beams cut through space. Missiles with advanced guidance systems locked onto Vrexian ships, and every single weapon hit with devastating accuracy. The human attack was coordinated by artificial intelligence that could calculate thousands of angles and trajectories in seconds. There was no waste. Every shot counted. Vrexian armor, designed to be a backup after shields absorbed most damage, was not prepared for direct hits from such powerful weapons. Hulls cracked, ships listed. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Ensign Daihyun led his fighter squadron through the chaos. His target was a Vrexian cruiser that was trying to retreat. He locked onto the ship's engines and fired. His missiles struck true, crippling the vessel. Around him, hundreds of other fighters did the same, swarming the larger Vrexian ships like insects attacking giants. "This is for the Helian colonies," Daehyun whispered as he watched the cruiser burn. "This is for thinking we were weak." "Commander." Jiwan and her boarding teams launched from the Vengeance. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed. They carried fusion cutters and plasma weapons. Their target was a damaged Vrexian battleship that was still trying to fight. The boarding pods attached to the battleship's hull. Jiwan cut through the outer armor and led her team inside. Vrexian crew members tried to resist, but they were not prepared for humans in combat armor. Jiwan's team moved through the ship like a surgical strike, destroying power systems and weapon controls. "Bridge secured," Jiwan reported. "Ship is dead in space, moving to next target." General Minho watched the battle from his command chair. The tactical display showed Vrexian ships falling one by one. Some tried to flee. Human ships pursued them. Some tried to fight. Human weapons destroyed them. In less than 3 hours, the most powerful battle group in the Vrexian fleet was being systematically annihilated. Kelthrix knew he was beaten. His flagship was crippled. Most of his fleet was destroyed or disabled. He had never imagined such a defeat was possible. His people had ruled space for centuries. They had never lost a major battle. Until now. "All remaining ships, retreat," he ordered. "Get out of this system." But it was too late. Human ships had surrounded the dominant Fury. Weapons were trained on the massive vessel from all sides. Then a communication came through. "High Strategos Kelthrix. This is General Minho of the United Human Navy. Power down your weapons. If you resist, we will destroy your ship. Choose quickly." Kelthrix looked around his bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. Systems were failing. Smoke filled the air. He had no choice. "Power down weapons," he said quietly. "We surrender." Human soldiers boarded the dominant Fury. They took Kelthrix into custody. He was brought to the Retribution in restraints. As he walked through the human warship, he was amazed by what he saw. The technology was not primitive at all. The ship was filled with advanced systems, some that even the Vrexians did not possess. How long had humans been building this fleet? How long had they been preparing? General Minho met Kelthrix in a holding cell. The two looked at each other. Kelthrix remembered the human captain from 50 years ago, the one he had saved, Daiho. This general had the same look in his eyes. Determination, pride, but also something else. Anger. You saved us once, Minho said. 50 years ago, you rescued the Tajin pioneer. You saved 50,000 human lives. We have never forgotten that. Kelthrix said nothing. What could he say? Minho continued. But you also taught us something important that day. You showed us how weak we were. You looked at us like we were insects. You told us to stay in our designated sectors, to know our place. Minho leaned closer. So we learned. For 50 years we learned. We built. We prepared. All in secret. And we waited for the day when your kindness would run out. That day came when you destroyed our colonies. What will you do with me? Kelthrix asked. I am going to send you home, Minho said, with a message for your people and the entire galaxy. Kelthrix was placed in an escape pod. Before it launched, General Minho gave him a data chip. It contained a recording. Kelthrix was told to broadcast it on all frequencies when he reached Vrexian space. The escape pod drifted away from the human fleet. Behind it, the wreckage of the Vrexian battle group floated in space. Only 12 ships out of 50 had survived, and most of those were crippled. The pride of the Vrexian military had been crushed in a single afternoon. When Kelthrix reached safety, he broadcast the message as instructed. General Minho's face appeared on screens across the galaxy. His words were calm, but firm. To the Vrexian collective and all species in the galaxy. 50 years ago, you saved us when we were helpless. We have been grateful. We have sought peace. But you mistook our gratitude for weakness. You thought we would always need your charity. You were wrong. The Helion sector now belongs to humanity. Any species that challenges our claim will face the same fate as the Vrexian battle group. We are no longer asking for permission to exist. We are declaring our right to stand as equals. This is the new reality. Accept it or test us. Choose wisely. The message ended. The galaxy fell silent. Then the chaos began. The galaxy exploded into emergency sessions. Every major civilization held crisis meetings. The defeat of the Vrexian battle group sent shockwaves through space. If the mighty Vrexians could be destroyed so easily, what did that mean for everyone else? The Vrexian collective refused to accept their humiliation. They called upon their oldest allies. 4 great powers answered. The Quellan hive mind, a collective of billions of insect-like beings who fought as one organism. The Sardak corporate states, a ruthless merchant empire with vast mercenary armies. The Thalios ascendancy, an ancient civilization whose ships were considered works of art and weapons of legend. And of course the Vrexians themselves, determined to restore their honor. Together they formed the Suppression Coalition. Their goal was simple: crush humanity before this threat could spread. They assembled the largest military force seen in 1,000 years. 4,000 warships, millions of soldiers, technology from 4 different advanced civilizations. They believed such overwhelming force would end the human uprising quickly. The coalition sent an ultimatum to Earth. Humanity must surrender all territory beyond their original 3 star systems. They must dismantle their military. They must submit to galactic supervision. They had 30 days to comply, refuse, and face total war. Earth's government did not take 30 days. They did not take 30 hours. General Minho responded within 3 hours of receiving the ultimatum. His message was broadcast across all channels. To the Suppression Coalition, we reject your ultimatum. We reject your authority. We reject your belief that you can dictate humanity's future. If you want war, you will have it. But know this: we have prepared for 50 years for exactly this moment. Come and test us. We are ready. The coalition leaders were shocked by the defiance. They had expected fear and negotiation. Instead, they got a declaration of war from a species they considered inferior. Very well. If humans wanted to be destroyed, the coalition would oblige them. Behind the scenes, humanity activated every weapon they had built. The hidden fleet had been just the beginning. Automated defense platforms emerged from storage around every human world. Massive orbital railguns came online, their barrels pointed at the stars. And in the deepest black sites, scientists activated humanity's ultimate deterrent: weapons based on artificial singularity technology. Planet killers, weapons that could create tiny black holes and tear worlds apart. Dr. Hewan oversaw the final preparations. She had not slept in 3 days. Her team was working around the clock to ensure every system functioned perfectly. They had one chance to get this right. If they failed, humanity would be wiped out. General, all defense platforms are online. All singularity weapons are armed. We are as ready as we can be, she reported to Minho. Good. How long until the Coalition fleet arrives? 48 hours. They are not being subtle. They want us to see them coming. They want us to be afraid. Minho smiled grimly. Then let us show them that we are not afraid. Let us show them what happens when you corner a species that has nothing left to lose. The Coalition fleet entered human space like a massive wall of metal and energy. 4,000 ships organized into perfect formations. They expected to fight their way through human defenses over weeks or months. Instead, they found a nightmare. The railguns fired first. They had been positioned in orbit around human worlds, hidden until the moment they were needed. Now they revealed themselves and began firing continuously. Projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, moving too fast for enemy shields to fully block. The railgun rounds punched through Coalition ships like bullets through paper. The Coalition fleet scattered, trying to avoid the deadly fire. But that was exactly what General Minho wanted. As the enemy ships broke formation, human warships emerged from hiding. They had been waiting, powered down and silent, pretending to be debris or asteroids. Now they activated and struck from all sides. Captain Daehyun led a wolf pack of destroyers against a Quelon Hive ship. The massive vessel was 3 times larger than any human ship, covered in organic armor that could heal itself. But Daehyun had studied these ships. He knew their weakness. All ships target the neural clusters. Fire on my mark. Daehyun watched his tactical display. When the moment was right, he gave the order. His destroyers fired in perfect coordination. Their weapons struck the specific points where the hive mind controlled the ship. The massive vessel shuddered and went dark, its consciousness severed. Commander Ji-won was already deep in enemy territory. Her special forces had been inserted behind Coalition lines days before the battle began. Now they struck at supply depots and command vessels. Ji-won personally led an attack on a Sardak ammunition transport. Her team infiltrated the ship, set charges, and escaped just as the vessel exploded, taking 2 nearby cruisers with it. This is Ghost Team to command. Target destroyed. Moving to next objective. We will cut their supply lines until they have nothing left to fight with. Dr. Hewan unveiled another surprise. Nanoweapon clouds, swarms of microscopic machines that could infiltrate enemy ships through any opening. Once inside, they systematically disabled technology, turning advanced warships into floating scrap. The Coalition watched in horror as their most sophisticated vessels simply stopped working one by one. A Thalios commander tried to rally his forces. The Thalios were the oldest and most technologically advanced species in the Coalition. Their ships had never been defeated in direct combat, but they had never faced human weapons before. Human tactical AI predicted every move the Thalios ships made. When they zigged, human weapons were already firing where they would be. When they retreated, they found human ships waiting. It was not a battle. It was a massacre orchestrated by computers that calculated trajectories faster than any organic mind could think. 2 weeks into the invasion, the Coalition had lost over 1,000 ships. They had not destroyed a single human world. They had not even breached the outer defensive sphere of any major colony. Instead, they were being slowly torn apart by an enemy that fought with cold precision and overwhelming technological superiority. The Quelon Hive mind was the first to break. As a collective consciousness, it could feel every death, every destroyed ship. The pain became too much. The Hive withdrew from the Coalition and sued for peace with humanity. They offered technology and resources in exchange for non-aggression. General Minho accepted. 1 enemy down. The Sardak corporate states did what they always did. They calculated profit and loss. The war was costing them more than they could ever gain. Their shareholders demanded withdrawal. The corporate board voted to abandon the Coalition and negotiate with humanity. They offered trade agreements and monetary compensation, Mino accepted that too. 2 enemies down. The Thalios Ascendancy faced the hardest choice. They had lost ships that were centuries old, irreplaceable vessels that had survived dozens of wars. Their pride was shattered, but their leaders were wise enough to know when a war was lost. They withdrew, offering a formal peace treaty and recognition of human sovereignty. Mino signed the treaty. 3 enemies down, only the Vrexians remained. Pride and anger drove them forward. They had started this war. They had destroyed human colonies. They had demanded submission. To retreat now would be to admit they were no longer the dominant power in the galaxy. The Vrexian leadership could not accept that. The Vrexians threw their remaining reserves into one final assault. Their target was Earth itself. If they could destroy humanity's homeworld, they reasoned, the war would end. Human colonies would collapse without their center. It was a desperate gamble, but they had nothing left to lose. General Minho watched the Vrexian fleet approach. 2,000 ships, everything the Vrexians had left. They were coming to Earth in one massive wave. It would be the largest space battle in human history. Recall all ships to Sol System, Minho ordered. Every vessel. Every fighter. Everything we have. The Vrexians want to end this at Earth. Very well. We will end it here, one way or another. Captain Daehyun received the order while patrolling the outer colonies. He immediately turned his ship toward home. As he traveled, he thought about his grandfather. Captain Daeho had died never knowing this war would happen, but Daehyun knew his grandfather would understand. The Vrexians had saved them once, but they had also looked at humanity with contempt. Now humanity was proving that contempt had been a fatal mistake. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Vrexians were coming with everything they had. Humanity was ready with everything they had built in 50 years of preparation. Only one side would survive. The other would become a cautionary tale whispered across the galaxy for generations to come. The sky above Earth turned into fire. 2,000 Vrexian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. They came in formation, weapons charged, determined to destroy humanity's homeworld. It was the largest military force ever assembled against a single planet. Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge of his cruiser, now promoted to lead the inner defense fleet. Around him, thousands of human ships took position. Every warship humanity possessed had gathered here. Every fighter, every defense platform. This was it, the final battle. If they lost here, humanity would be broken forever. All ships, this is Captain Daehyun. Hold your positions. Wait for the order. We will not fire first. Let them come to us. Let them enter our kill zone. Then we show them what happens when you attack Earth. The Vrexian fleet advanced slowly. They had learned from their earlier defeats. They kept tight formations. Their shields were modified to resist human disruptors. They fired long-range weapons as they approached, testing human defenses. But General Minho had prepared for everything. The orbital railguns opened fire. Hundreds of them, positioned around every planet and moon in the system. They had been firing for days, filling space with millions of projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The Vrexians had to navigate through a storm of metal death just to reach Earth. Ships exploded. Shields flickered and failed under the constant bombardment, but the Vrexians kept coming. They were willing to sacrifice everything for victory. For every ship that fell, 2 more pushed forward. They were like a wave of metal and fury, unstoppable in their determination. Commander Jiwon was already in position. Her teams had infiltrated several Vrexian support vessels that had arrived early to scout. Now as the main fleet advanced, she struck. Explosions bloomed behind the Vrexian lines as munition ships and fuel depots were destroyed from within. The Vrexians found themselves fighting on 2 fronts, the humans in front of them and saboteurs behind them. Ghost Team to all units. We have crippled their supply chain. They cannot sustain a long battle. Make them waste their ammunition. Drag this out and they will run dry. The Vrexians reached Jupiter's orbit. Human defenders met them there with everything they had. The battle was chaos. Ships collided. Weapons fire lit up the darkness. Fighters swarmed like angry insects. The radio channels were filled with screams and orders and static. Daehyun led a squadron against a Vrexian dreadnought. The massive ship was larger than anything humans had built. Its weapons could destroy cities with single shots. But Daehyun had studied his grandfather's records. He knew how Vrexians thought. They always protected their main weapons first. That meant their engines were vulnerable. All fighters follow my lead. Ignore the weapons. Hit the engines. Cripple them and move on to the next target. His squadron dove toward the dreadnought, dodging defensive fire. They struck the engine section with missiles and particle beams. The dreadnought shuddered. Its main drive failed. The massive ship began to drift, unable to maneuver, an easy target for human capital ships. On Earth, General Minho watched the tactical displays. The battle was going well, but the Vrexians still had numbers. They were pushing through human defenses through sheer force of will. They would reach Earth eventually, and when they did, they would try to destroy everything. Minho made a decision. It was time to show the galaxy humanity's final weapon. Dr. Haiwan, activate the singularity weapons. Target the Vrexian homeworld. Prepare to fire on my command. Haiwan hesitated. General, are you sure? If we fire those weapons, we will destroy an entire planet. Billions of lives. I do not want to fire them, Doctor, but I need the Vrexians to know we can. I need them to understand that if they destroy Earth, their homeworld dies too. Arm the weapons. Broadcast our intention on all channels. Let them make the choice. The message went out across the galaxy. Every species heard it. Every government saw the proof. Human weapons were pointed at the Vrexian homeworld, weapons powerful enough to tear a planet apart. And humanity made it clear. If Earth fell, the Vrexians would lose everything. On the Vrexian flagship, the new High Command received the message. Kelthrix was no longer in charge. He had been replaced after his defeat. The new commanders faced an impossible choice. Continue the attack and watch their homeworld die, or retreat and accept defeat. The Vrexians were warriors. They had conquered countless worlds. But they were not suicidal. They understood what General Minho was telling them. This was not a bluff. The humans had already proven they possessed unimaginable weapons. They would use them. The Vrexian fleet stopped advancing. For long minutes, nothing happened. The two sides faced each other across the darkness. Humans waited. Vrexians calculated. The fate of civilizations hung in balance. Then the Vrexian flagship broadcasted a message. Human command, this is Vrexian High Command. We request a ceasefire. We wish to negotiate terms. General Minho allowed himself a small smile. They had won. Not through more bloodshed, but through the threat of it. Sometimes the most powerful weapon was the one you never had to fire. Ceasefire accepted. Send representatives to neutral territory. We will discuss terms. The war ended not with a massive explosion, but with a transmission. The Vrexian fleet withdrew from Sol system. Peace negotiations began immediately. The terms were harsh for the Vrexians. They lost massive territories. They paid enormous reparations. They were forced to recognize human sovereignty over all claimed space. Most importantly, they had to acknowledge humans as equals. The galaxy watched in amazement. In less than a year, humanity had gone from a minor species to the dominant military power in known space. Species that had ignored humans now requested alliances. Former enemies begged for peace treaties. The entire balance of power had shifted, but victory came with costs. Human casualties numbered in the millions. Entire colonies had been damaged. The massive military buildup had consumed resources that could have been used for peaceful expansion. And humanity had become a warrior species, forever changed by the conflict. 6 months after the war ended, a ceremony was held on Earth. General Minho, Dr. Haiwan, Commander Jiwan, and Captain Daehyun stood together before a monument. It listed the names of every human who had died in the war. Millions of names. Millions of lives given so humanity could survive. Minho spoke to the gathered crowd. We did not want this war. We tried peace. We tried cooperation. But when we were threatened with extinction, we fought back with everything we had. Today, humanity is safe. Today, we are respected. But we must never forget the price we paid. And we must never forget why we fought. Not for conquest. Not for glory. But for the simple right to exist as equals among the stars. Earth established a new government structure. The Terran hegemony. All human colonies and territories united under one banner. The military doctrine was clear and broadcast to every species. Humanity remembers kindness and repays it. But humanity also remembers threats and responds with overwhelming force. Never again would humans be helpless. Never again would they rely on alien charity. The Vrexian collective was broken. Subject species they had ruled for centuries declared independence, knowing the Vrexians no longer had strength to stop them. Kelthrix lived to see his civilization reduced to a shadow of its former glory. He spent his final years writing his memoirs, warning future generations about the danger of underestimating others. Captain Daehyun visited his grandfather's grave on New Seoul. Captain Daeho had been buried there years ago, beneath a tree he had planted when the colony was founded. Daehyun placed a medal on the grave. It was made from metal salvaged from the original Taejan Pioneer. The inscription read, "They helped once. We never forgot. We never will." Daehyun sat beside the grave and spoke to his grandfather even though he knew no one was listening. "You told me once that the Rexians saved us. You were grateful. I know you were, but I also know you saw how they looked at us. Like we were nothing, like we did not matter. That look is what started all of this. Because we decided we would matter. We decided we would never be looked at that way again." He looked up at the sky. Human warships patrolled overhead, eternal guardians of a species that had learned the hardest lesson. In a dangerous universe, gratitude and strength must go hand in hand. You could appreciate kindness while also preparing for betrayal. You could remember who helped you while also making sure you never needed that help again. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Humanity was no longer prey. They were no longer children who needed protection. They were equals, armed with weapons that could reshape worlds, backed by the determination to never be helpless again. The Vrexians had helped once, saving 50,000 humans from certain death. That act of charity had seemed like a small thing at the time. But it planted a seed of gratitude, yes, but also a seed of determination. A seed that grew over 50 years into a forest of warships, weapons, and warriors. And when the Vrexians finally tried to crush humanity, they discovered something terrifying. The species they once saved had become stronger than them. The primitives they once looked down upon had built an empire. The grateful children had grown into fearsome adults. Across the galaxy, species whispered a new saying. Be careful who you help. Be careful who you insult, because the weak today might become the strong tomorrow. The alarm screamed through the corridors of the Taejan Pioneer. Captain Daeho ran toward the engine room, his heart pounding against his chest. Behind him, the ship groaned and shuddered like a dying animal. 50,000 people slept in cryopods below, dreaming of their new home on New Seoul. They had no idea their ship was dying. Daeho burst into the engine room. 3 engineers worked frantically at the quantum drive controls. Sparks flew from broken panels. The smell of burned circuits filled the air. Engineer Youngmi looked up, her face covered in sweat and ash. Captain, the quantum core is failing. We cannot fix it. We do not have the parts. Her voice shook. Life support will fail in 6 hours. 6 hours. Daeho closed his eyes. 6 hours until 50,000 colonists suffocated in their sleep. 6 hours until everything ended in the cold darkness of space. Send distress signals on all frequencies, Daeho ordered. Emergency power to communications. Use everything we have. Youngmi nodded and ran to the communication station. Daeho knew it was hopeless. They were in the outer rim, far from any human colonies. No rescue would arrive in time. But he had to try. He owed those sleeping families every chance. 5 hours passed. The ship grew colder. Emergency lights flickered. Daeho sat in his command chair, watching the life support readings drop. His small crew gathered on the bridge. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. Then the sensors beeped. Something was approaching. Something massive, Captain, Youngmi shouted. Ship detected. It is huge. 3 times our size. Daeho leaned forward. On the main screen, a vessel emerged from the darkness. It was beautiful and terrifying. Smooth silver metal, glowing blue lights along its hull. Technology far beyond anything humans had built. They are hailing us, Youngmi said. Audio only. Open the channel, Daeho commanded. A deep voice filled the bridge. The words were translated by the computer, but the tone was cold and distant. Human vessel Taejan Pioneer. This is High Strategos Kelthrix of the Vrexian Collective. We received your distress signal. State your situation. Daeho swallowed. High Strategos, our quantum drive has failed. Life support is failing. We have 50,000 people in cryosleep. We have less than 1 hour remaining. We request emergency assistance. Silence. Long, terrible silence. Daeho held his breath. Then Kelthrix spoke again. We will provide assistance. Prepare to receive our repair teams. Do not resist or we will leave you to die. Hope exploded in Daeho's chest. He gripped the armrests of his chair. They had a chance. His people had a chance, thank you, High Strategos. We will cooperate fully. The Vrexian ship moved closer. Docking tubes extended like metal fingers. Daiho watched through the security cameras as alien beings entered his ship. The Vrexians were tall, taller than humans. They had forearms and skin that looked like polished stone. They wore no helmets, no protective suits. They moved through the damaged corridors with complete confidence. The Vrexian engineers worked quickly. Their tools were strange but effective. They replaced the broken quantum core with a temporary power unit. They patched the life support systems. They provided medical supplies and food rations. In 3 hours, they did what would have taken humans 3 weeks. High Strategos Kelthrix came aboard. He was even larger than his crew, his stone-like skin marked with golden patterns. He looked around the human bridge with obvious disdain. When he looked at Daiho, his eyes were cold. "Your ship will function now," Kelthrix said. "The temporary drive will carry you to the nearest habitable system. We have also provided supplies for your colonists." He paused. "Your technology is very primitive. You should not travel so far from your worlds with such poor equipment." Daiho felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice respectful. "We are grateful for your help, High Strategos. You saved 50,000 lives today. Humanity will remember this kindness." Kelthrix made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Gratitude from primitives means little. We helped because we choose to help, not because we expect anything from your species. Stay in your designated sectors, human. The galaxy is larger and more dangerous than you understand. Do not venture into territories where you do not belong." With that, Kelthrix turned and left. His crew followed. The docking tubes disconnected. The massive Vrexian ship moved away and disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Tejan pioneer alone once more. Youngmi stood beside Daiho. She watched the space where the alien ship had been. Her hands were shaking. "They saved us," she whispered, "but they looked at us like we were insects." Daiho nodded slowly. "Yes, they did, and we need to remember both things." The Tejan pioneer reached the habitable system. The colonists woke from cryosleep. When they learned what happened, they celebrated. They had been saved. Someone in the cold universe had shown them mercy. News of the rescue spread across human space. Earth's government sent formal thanks to the Vrexian collective. Trade agreements were signed. For a brief moment, it seemed like humanity had made a friend among the stars. But in a secure facility on Earth, Admiral Sujin watched recordings of the Vrexian ship. She watched how easily they repaired human technology. She watched their weapons and shields. She watched their faces when they looked at humans. Admiral Sujin called a meeting with Earth's top military leaders. She played the recordings. She showed them Kelthrix's words about primitive technology and staying in designated sectors. "They saved us," Admiral Sujin said quietly, "and I am grateful. But they also showed us something important. They showed us how weak we are. They showed us that they see us as primitives who should know our place." She looked around the room. What happens when they decide our place is nowhere? What happens when their kindness runs out? The room was silent. Everyone understood. They had been saved today. But tomorrow, next year, would the Vrexians always be kind, or would they one day decide that humanity was in the way? "I am proposing a new project," Admiral Sujin continued. "Project Recall. Our mission is simple. Never be helpless again. Never rely on alien charity. Build weapons. Build ships. Build defenses. Do it in secret. Do it quickly, so that if the day comes when gratitude is not enough, we will be ready." The proposal was approved that same day. Across human space, scientists and engineers received classified orders. New research stations were built in hidden locations. Shipyards disguised as commercial facilities began their real work. On New Sol, Captain Daiho watched the sunset with his young grandson, Daehyun. The boy asked about the aliens who saved them. Daiho smiled and told him the story. He told him about kindness in the darkness. But he did not tell the boy what he had seen in Kelthrix's eyes. That look would haunt Daiho for the rest of his life. It was not hatred. It was something worse. It was indifference. The look a farmer gives to livestock. The look a king gives to a beggar. Humanity had been saved. Humanity was grateful. But humanity would also remember that look. And humanity would make sure that no one ever looked at them that way again. The clock started ticking. 50 years. That was all the time humanity would need.